If I had to nominate somebody for the Dumb as a Rock Award, it would most certainly be Individual 1. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on East Coast Radio. Mile journey begins with one step. Progressives took that step on November 6th. The journey's not over, but we took a step in the right direction.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Did you see New York 11 elected a Democrat? New York 11 is Staten Island, the most Trumpian place in New York City. Elected a Democrat. Don't try to tell me it wasn't a wave. Robert Mueller isn't the only person investigating Trump now. We have the House Intel Committee is now chaired by Adam Schiff, and they have subpoena power. And he will use it. And he will get to the bottom of this, like he's been trying to do for the last 2 years, and Devin Nunes has been stymieing him. Devin Nunes is no longer the chairman. The midnight runs to the White House are over. I made a promise to the listeners of East Coast Radio that if the Democrats did not mess up November, that if November 6th went our way, that we would have a little fun here on East Coast Radio. And if you stay tuned, I promise you this. Along with our fighting fascism and trying to save democracy, we will have a little fun. Because we earned it. Keep it locked to East Coast Radio.
Representing Staten Island.
Remember, we got Dyze in your house at the end of the week. We got the J Parks podcast at the beginning of the week. Every week, East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Get us on Patreon, patreon.com/JParks, and follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Let's punch fascism in the face. One podcast at a time.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived. Representing Staten Island. Staten Island was no joke.
Yo, who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is Friday, and we are back with another end of the week edition of Dyze in your house, exclusively on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. What we do here is we fight fascism. We use our platform, and we claim that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we bring light to all the things that might be happening that you're not paying attention to, but they are happening, and it is a slippery slope, that fascism, man. That fascism is like when you get on the advanced ski slopes. I've never been skiing. I can honestly say I've never been skiing, and I'm a white privileged person. I've never been skiing. What's up with that? Anyhow, big day today. Big day. We've been waiting around here at East Coast Radio headquarters. We've been waiting around for Special Counsel Robert Mueller to make some filings. 2 filings coming out today. First, there was the Michael Cohen filing, the sentencing memo from the Southern District of New York, and there was a additional memo from Mueller on Michael Cohen. Also, Paul Manafort he lied after entering a plea agreement with the special counsel Robert Mueller. Now, really quick, because the Paul Manafort memo is heavily redacted. Heavily redacted. All we know is that Paul Manafort told, and let's get the word the Washington Post is using here. WAPO is using discernible lies, including about contacts with employee alleged to have Russian intelligence ties. So what happened was, Paul Manafort entered a plea with Robert Mueller, special counsel with the special counsel's office. He entered a plea agreement, and then he started talking to his co-defendant, Konstantin Kilmanek, who is alleged to have Russian intelligence ties. Now, simply put, you're not supposed to do that. So, his plea agreement has been yanked, and he may be recharged for all of those crimes. Not recharged, but the charges that he pleaded out to or that were hung, he might have to go back. He's going to be charged again with, obstruction of justice. At least more obstruction of justice. So Paul Manafort, discernible lies to the special counsel's office. Now this just is a continuation of what we've been saying for the whole 18 months. Robert Mueller knows all. He knows everything. He knows more than the people who he's investigating. He knows what happened. So everybody has an opportunity now to go into the special counsel's office and tell the truth. And they're choosing not to do that. Paul Manafort rolled the dice. He went to trial and he lost. And he was found guilty on 8 counts of fraud. And then he entered a plea. And then he broke the plea by lying and by telling Trump's lawyers and by telling Konstantin Kilmanek and the Russian government about what the special counsel was asking him about. What is scarier than prison? Tell you who's not scared of prison? Michael Cohen. Now, before I read the gist of the sentencing memo here, I just want to say that Michael Cohen is not an American hero. Michael Cohen is a criminal that broke laws and deserves to go to prison. But being that in this government full of criminals and all of the criminals we see on television, not on television, but on the news, all of the criminals that work in the fascist regime, the entire Trump crime family, it's good that one person is at least gonna, I'll pay for my crimes. Yeah, he wanted no jail time. Nobody wants any jail time. But the Southern District of New York thought otherwise. And let's go to the gist of the memo, the sentencing memo from Michael Cohen, courtesy of the Southern District of New York. So here's the first paragraph. Cohen, an attorney and businessman, committed 4 distinct federal crimes over a period of several years. He was motivated to do so by personal greed and repeatedly used his power and influence for deceptive ends. Now, he seeks extraordinary leniency, a sentence of no jail time, based principally on his rose-colored view of the seriousness of the crimes, his claims to a sympathetic personal history, and his provision of certain information to law enforcement. But the crimes committed by Cohen were more serious than his submission allows, and were marked by a pattern of deception that has permeated his professional life, and was evidently hidden from friends and family members who wrote on his behalf. Quote, to be clear, Cohen does not have a cooperation agreement and is not receiving a Section 5K1.1 letter either from this office or the special counsel's office, and therefore is not properly described as a, quote, cooperating witness, as that term is commonly used for the district. As set forth in the submission being filed by the special counsel's office in 18 CR.850 WHP. This office understands that the information provided by Cohen to the special counsel was ultimately credible and useful to its ongoing investigation. Cohen repeatedly declined to provide full information about the scope of any additional criminal contact in which he may have engaged or had knowledge. Cohen only met with the office about the participation of others in campaign finance crimes, to which Cohen had already pleaded guilty. Cohen specifically declined to be debriefed on other uncharged criminal conduct, if any, in his past. Southern District of New York. A substantial term of imprisonment is warranted. And then that was followed quickly by Mueller filing his sentencing memo re Michael Cohen. The government does not take a position with respect to a particular sentence to be imposed, but submits that it is appropriate for any sentence of incarceration to be served concurrently. Mueller's office. He also has gone to significant lengths to assist the investigation. He has met with the special counsel's office on 7 occasions, voluntarily provided the special counsel's office with information about his own conduct and that of others. Mueller's office said Cohen lied to them recently as August 2018, re the Moscow Project. When questioned about the Moscow Project, Cohen provided false answers in what he later explained was an effort not to contradict his congressional testimony. Cohen told the special counsel's office that he lied about remarks re Moscow being spontaneous. That, in fact, he consulted with Trump prior to reaching out with the Russian government. The special counsel's office reveals how Cohen has been helpful to their investigation. Mueller, and this is continuing on in the Manafort memo, a separate memo. Mueller says Manafort lied about contacts and with administration officials. And there's a picture of the Manafort filing, and it is all redacted. There's probably about 20 words on these 3 pages that aren't redacted. Michael Cohen, as late as August 2018, was lying to Congress. Now, why was he lying to Congress? Because Trump told him to lie to Congress. That's why. Individual 1. There's some wording here that's specific. And the Southern District of New York is recommending 42 to 63 months for Michael Cohen. Now, this was in the 41-page Michael Cohen sentencing memo. While many Americans who desired a particular outcome to the election knocked on doors, toiled at phone banks, or found any number of other legal ways to make their voices heard, Cohen sought to influence the election from the shadows. He did so by orchestrating secret and illegal payments to silence 2 women who otherwise would have made public their alleged extramarital affairs with individual 1. And there's an interesting line from Mueller here that Matthew Miller picked up on. The defendant amplified his false statements by releasing and repeating his lies to the public, according to other potential witnesses. By publicly presenting this false narrative, the defendant deliberately shifted the timeline of what had occurred in hopes of limiting the investigations into possible Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. This translates to Robert Mueller seems to care if you lie to the public. And if Robert Mueller cares about if you lied to the public, then guess what, rising fascist regime? It's time to fall. And let's not forget that it is not just, Trump has to resign and this is over. That's not what it is. Pence has to resign. Paul Manafort went to great lengths to make sure Mike Pence was the vice president. And the reason and one of the great lengths he went to was making sure that Trump's plane stayed grounded in Indiana for an extra day. So Trump and Pence can, get to know each other better. That's how bad Paul Manafort wanted Mike Pence to be vice president. Now, why, you might ask? Well, who's Paul Manafort worked for? I know you were gonna say Trump. That's wrong. Paul Manafort works for Vladimir Putin. Paul Manafort works for Russian oligarchs. So if he was that hell-bent on getting Pence the VP slot, there has to be a reason for that. Pence is dirty. Pence knew about Flynn. And Flynn's recommended no jail time because he told the truth sooner. I mean, you know, there was no legal jargon that I got from Ari Melber when I was just watching on Friday night after this broke. I wasn't sitting there. I didn't pick up any jargon besides Flynn got a better deal than Cohen, because Flynn, when they were like, yo, we got you, he was like, alright, I'll talk. And Cohen was like, no, I'll tell you a little bit, I'll tell you this, I'll tell you that, oh, okay, I'm done. Cohen realizes that he has an opportunity. He looks at Paul Manafort, and he says, you know what, Paul Manafort's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, or he's going to get Sergei Skripal by some Russians. And we don't want that to happen to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to jail. I'm 50-something years old, 5 years in jail. I'll still be alive. I'll still have, you know, some years of my life left. Maybe with some good behavior. And Michael Cohen, someone's going to write his book. You know Emily Jane Fox is going to write his book. And he's going to make money. And he's finally going to do what he always set out to do. Make money off the presidency. It's a win-win-win. So remember everybody, when you're talking about impeachment and removal and treason, sedition, and how Trump is a traitor to this country and he conspired with a foreign government to steal an election, when you talk about all that, remember that not only does he have to go, but Pence has to go. And when they both go, that leaves President Nancy Pelosi. And hear me out. If President Nancy Pelosi, which she, you know, it's not like there's no fourth person in line that gets the VP slot. She gets to pick a VP, right? She gets to pick a vice president, doesn't she? What about if Pence and Trump had to resign, President Pelosi picks Hillary Clinton as her vice president, and then Nancy Pelosi resigns, and Hillary Clinton's the president? Nah, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to scare a bunch of the right-wing nutbags here. So see, Republicans, you see what you did? You see what happened? Do you see what's going on? Do you want Nancy Pelosi to be president? So you guys better get your shit together, man. I don't know why it is taking... The GOP is still standing by this guy. There's no Protect Mueller bill. While Fox News host is going to be the ambassador to the UN. We're going to talk about that on Monday. On Sunday night's edition of the J Porks podcast. Which is coming back this week. Last week we didn't have it, but we're going to have it this week. We got a bunch of stuff going on. We're going to, you know, unpack these memos. We're going to get some analysis. Matto's on tonight. It's going to be lit. So, CNN is now saying that Mueller's team says former Trump campaign chief Paul Manafort lied on 5 major issues while cooperating with prosecutors. 5 major issues? He lied on? How many issues were they discussing? He was cooperating for like 3 hours. It's insanity. So, on the J Porks podcast this week, after the weekend, we're going to cover all of that. We're going to unpack a lot of things. We're going to talk about what was Ivanka Trump doing at the G20? What is she selling? We're going to talk about that. Talk about more of this Cohen stuff. There'll be, you know, I guarantee you by the time we get to the J Porks podcast on Sunday night, there'll be more justice obstructed. That's gonna happen. So what I need you guys to do is just stick with me. Just follow Least Coast Radio on Twitter. Subscribe to Least Coast Radio on Apple Podcasts. And look for us on YouTube, Least Coast Radio. Subscribe, go to patreon.com/jporks. My birthday is coming up next week. And, we got a big couple of podcasts coming up. J Porks, Dyze in your house. Exclusively on Least Coast Radio.